What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bringing the Juice. Guys, there's been a lot of smoke right now regarding wide receiver from Washington, Terry McLaurin. A lot of smoke around the Indianapolis Colts. Colts right now, the team that is the highest favored right now, the best odds to land Terry McLaurin. And so we thought that we would address this conversation that's kind of been going around Colts Nation right now. As always, guys, Cody and Derek here with you guys. Let's dive right into it, guys. Let's kind of give our thoughts. Number one, let's talk about the player before we talk about anything else. Let's talk about the player of Terry McLaurin. Now, Derek, obviously you know Terry McLaurin very well from his days at Ohio State. Tremendous receiver in the league, has been one of the better younger receivers in the league. Tell me your thoughts on Terry McLaurin, and just, without going into what the Colts had to give up or anything, just tell me strictly, if he was added to the Colts, what kind of player would the Colts be getting?
Well, I mean, you know how the Colts fan base really feels about Terry McLaurin. I mean, there was a lot of people that said, that the Colts should have drafted Terry McLaurin over Paris Campbell multiple years ago. And obviously, Terry McLaurin, when, he got to Washington, has just been a staple number one receiver for that franchise for the last 3 years. And I mean, it hasn't looked back. I mean, you could make the argument that Terry McLaurin's an easy top 20 receiver right now in the NFL. And I mean, that's not an understatement. I mean, for the quarterback play that he's been surrounded by and the body of work he's been able to put in, I mean, he quite arguably has some of the best hands in the league. He's got some of the best footwork. He makes some of the best contested catches out there. And he just destroys teams day in and day out just with the quarterbacks that he's had. So, without going too much into other detail, which we're going to talk about here in a bit, I mean, Terry McLaurin, I mean, if he were brought in like right now, he would be the number one right now for Indianapolis, easy. And that's no knock on Michael Pittman, but I mean, Michael Pittman is just a year or two behind Terry McLaurin right now. And McLaurin's is just a beast. I mean, he's been a really good wide receiver all the way back to his Ohio State days. Just got overshadowed by some of the elite talent that they had on that roster at that time. But McLaurin checks out. I mean, he checks everything you want in a receiver, especially the character. I mean, what Terry McLaurin would offer the Colts, I mean, that would put this offense on a whole nother level.
I mean, talk about the weapons that Matt Ryan would have to work with. I mean, Terry McLaurin and Michael Pittman on either side of each other. You throw in a rookie like Alec Pierce, who you have high hopes for, and then a guy like Paris Campbell, like you mentioned, who Terry McLaurin played with.
Yeah.
Reuniting teammates there. I mean, this Colts receiver core, I think, honestly, you could argue would be tremendously upgraded with a player like Terry McLaurin. Getting a true number one bona fide receiver. We think Pittman's going to get there, right? We certainly do. McLaurin has proved it now for a couple of years that he is a number one wide receiver in this league. And you throw in, probably the best quarterback that he would ever have played with this so far in his career in Matt Ryan. I mean, I think overall this would be great addition to this Colts wide receiver core, who does need, I think, a proven guy. And we've talked about that before. Maybe the Colts are looking to add a vet, here in the next coming weeks, coming months, whatever that is, whether it's before or during or even after training camp, we'll see. But certainly from that standpoint, it would check all those boxes. And, local kid from Indiana, so he'd be coming home.
And is a Colts fan really too, by the way.
He was a Colts fan.
He was a Colts fan his entire life too, and that's where I thought it's funny. I've been looking through Twitter all day and been seeing like people digging up his old tweets from like 2014 and 2015, talking about the Colts and everything, and they're like, "How is this guy not in a Colts uniform?" Like, oh my god, y'all, y'all be stretching. Why y'all going all the way back to 2015 on this man's tweets?
I mean, they just really, I don't blame them, man. You want Terry McLaurin to Indianapolis. I get that. But that's just, it's funny to just see people somehow find tweets from that long ago, which I guess goes to show
some
whatever
people
you
just
put on
have
the internet.
Too much time on their hands, man.
Yeah. But also, like, whatever you put on the internet, no matter if it's 5-6 years ago, people can still dig it up if they really try hard.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
With that. But I mean, we're going to also talk about, okay, realistically, guys, Terry McLaurin to the Colts. I mean, let's just first off talk about the compensation that it's going to take to get a player of Terry McLaurin's caliber. I think the Commanders would, be asking for a first round pick. I really do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I mean, I don't blame them. Terry McLaurin, like you mentioned, he's young. He's one of the best wide receivers in football right now. And, and I think this is kind of where, Derek, for me, it would, if the Colts were in a different situation with quarterback, I would definitely be more open to this, right? But next year, there's a lot of those top quarterbacks that are going to be available. If all goes well, the Colts are talented, they stay healthy, they're going to probably make the playoffs, right? They're going to be very close. They're not going to be a top 10 drafting team next year. So they're going to need all the ammo that they can get. They're going to need their first round pick next year. If they're going to trade up and get a quarterback there, maybe we'll have 2 second round picks. They need all the draft compensation that they can use right now to go get their franchise guy. That's kind of where I stand right now at quarterback. And I think next year will be the time the Colts do make a move at quarterback to try to find their future guy. Even though they do have Matt Ryan on a 2-year deal, I do think next year is probably the move, honestly. Just, considering all the compensation you'll have. And, getting a player like Terry McLaurin, player, obviously, we know, tremendous player. But to me, Derek, trading a first-round pick for a wide receiver or trading up to get your franchise quarterback, it really doesn't compare at all. Like, you can find, and obviously Terry McLaurin, great player. We talked about this, but getting a great elite wide receiver versus getting a franchise quarterback is, you would take the franchise quarterback, obviously 10 out of 10 times. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. So for all those reasons, if the Colts had a young quarterback already, I would be more open to this, but right now they don't, and they need to get a guy here in the next couple of years. And that's I think they need to have all that compensation, I guess, available to make a package a trade to get up there maybe next year or whenever they decide to make a move. That's kind of my thoughts.
I mean, they're not even if they didn't go a quarterback next year. I mean, even if they decided 2 or 3 years down the line, you still have to find that definitive answer, right? So, I mean, we kind of have to look at the situation that Terry McLaurin is in right now. So, obviously, Terry McLaurin, a top 25 wide receiver in this league. And we're seeing wide receivers, especially now getting paid giant lump sums of money because obviously we saw what happened with Christian Kirk. He has ruined it for everyone. Him and the Jags have ruined the wide receiver market. And now Terry McLaurin, who says, hey, my body of work has shown that I want to get paid $20+ million, because it's my time. I'm right in my prime. I'm doing this every year for you guys. I want to get paid like everybody else is. And, he's holding out of OTAs until in mini camp. And who knows how long he's going to hold out until contract extensions get talked about. Now, first off, I mean, let me kind of just say this. I'm in an agreement with you that I think that this is very unlikely. And I mean, we'll give many reasons why. First off, Fox Sports does have the Colts as the number 1 bet on Terry McLaurin landing there because, again, Terry's from Indiana, knows the area, loves the Indianapolis Colts, and it would fit right. He'd fit right in if you did get him. But ultimately, again, it goes based off of how much money is he going to get, right? So you have the issue of, I mean, the Colts could find a way to afford him. They definitely could. But the problem you have is that it's not right now that's the issue. It is a year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. When you're paying this guy, which we assume is probably going to be around the $25 million range. That's what we're probably guessing he's going to get. Because if Christian Kirk is getting $20 million a year, my guess is that Terry McLaurin's going to get a couple more million than that. So at the end of the day, you have a couple more guys coming up here in the next year or two that need to get paid. And one of them being Michael Pittman. And we know Ballard's opinion on Michael Pittman. And I mean, we think that he's going to be the number 1. He's transcending into that role. And we think with Matt Ryan, that could be the case for him going forward, right? So you're now insinuating if you went and got McLaurin, like you stated, on top of the draft capital that you would have to give up, right? I mean, Ballard maybe having to give up a first-round pick from this next year or maybe 2 years down the line. I mean, yeah, I don't think that You're right. If the Colts had their future franchise quarterback in the wakes, then I would definitely see this as an option. But the problem is that, yeah, if you decide next year that you need to get your quarterback of the future, you're kind of putting yourself in a bad situation. Even with the 2 second-round picks that the Colts have next year, probably, that still doesn't guarantee you anything. It certainly doesn't move you up in a position enough to move into the first round anyway. So, draft situation is already kind of tricky if you decide that you wanted to give up that first. You have to pay him $25 million. And then on top of it, here in a few years, you're going to assume that Michael Pittman's going to probably want close to $20 million, right? Because, this last season had 88 catches for 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. We assume he's probably going to have similar production, if not better production this next year, which means that's going to increase his value even higher. So that's difficult enough. I've seen Colts fans say that, they think MPJ would want to trade if we went and got Terry McLaurin. No, I don't think that MPJ is like that, but it would impact his overall cap situation because, if Terry McLaurin's getting $25 million, you can't afford to pay another guy $25 million on that roster. You can't afford to do that. So you're on top of the fact that you don't have much of a problem when it comes to money right now, but in a few years down the line, Quentin's got to get paid. Jonathan Taylor may end up getting paid. MPJ is going to have to get paid. And Ballard really likes MPJ. That's his guy, by the way. So, it's kind of in a situation where you just don't think that you're going to be able to land that kind of situation for him because the money just doesn't work. And I mean, MPJ is the number one guy in Indianapolis, whether or not people like it or not. I mean, Ballard has made it very clear his opinion on MPJ, and it just doesn't make sense that we would go out and get another receiver and lose more draft capital and more of our cap on a weapon that just this year would not help us win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's very not Chris Ballard like. I mean, you look at the ways that he has handled the wide receiver position. I mean, he really hasn't gone out and paid a guy, like a lot of these teams do. He hasn't paid a guy, 15, 20 million dollars.
At least not at the wide receiver spot.
Not at the wide receiver spot. And I think Ballard kind of views it a lot differently
to say
than
Ballard is going to actually pay that much, and if there's not another team that's going to pay him more.
Yeah,
because there's probably a bunch of other teams that are willing to pay a lot more money, aka the second favorite team to land Terry McLaurin if he doesn't sign with Washington is the Packers. Packers have draft capital and they don't have a receiver. They don't have a number one wide receiver outside of Christian Watson, who is a rookie. So with Terry McLaurin with Aaron Rodgers, that's a recipe for disaster for opposing defenses. So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, there's other teams right behind the Colts that one could afford him better and have the draft capital to be able to trade for him. It'd be much different if this was a free agent signing. I wouldn't care how much money Ballard spent to get Terry McLaurin if this was free agency, but that's not the situation. And Washington already got fleeced by us with that Carson Wentz trade. I'm guaranteeing you, if the Colts came calling, that offer is a little higher for Indianapolis than what it is for any other team.
Right, for sure. So, guys, let us know your thoughts on Terry McLaurin to Indianapolis. Do you think it makes sense? Do you agree with what we were saying about Terry McLaurin? Do you think it doesn't make sense? Let us know in the comments below, but that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all your support and everything that you do for us. Guys, we're trying to make the push to 12K. We're getting closer with every single day. So if you're still watching this video and this is your first time on the channel, or maybe you've been watching our videos for a while, you haven't hit subscribe or anything, we'd love for you to consider to do that. Drop a like, all that good stuff. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, you could do us a huge favor, leave us a 5-star review. That would be tremendous. All that feedback really means a lot to us. So we would love to hear from you, but that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. And as always, guys, go Colts.